Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this next edition of the DAP Learning Series, our virtual webinar series. My name is Tim Loudon. I'm a program manager for the Digital Analytics program. And today, the topic that we are going to discuss is using the Advanced Analysis tool. A couple things before we get started. Firstly, my inimitable colleague, Freddie Blicker, is monitoring the chat box. So if you have questions at any point during the webinar, feel free to put them in the chat, and Freddie can either help answer them there, or he can relay them to me at the end of the webinar when we'll have a Q&A section. Also, thanks to the wonderful DigitalGov University team who helps us put these on, you will be receiving a follow-up email after the webinar is over that will contain a bunch of links for more resources, as well as a link to take you to the spot where the slides will be, and finally, a satisfaction survey. It will take like a minute to fill out. I would ask that you do that for us because it helps us make sure that we are providing content that is valuable to you. So if you could do that, it would help us out a lot. Okay, with that, let's talk about the Advanced Analysis tool and what it is. So starting out here, if I can get my slides to advance, there we go. The agenda for today is what exactly is the tool and who can use it. And then we're going to go over the types of reports that you can use the tool for and how you create them. And I'm also going to do some comparison to the reports that you would have prior to this tool and try to give like a bit of a comparison as close as we can get with custom reports as well as the new Advanced Analysis reporting tool reports. And then finally, we'll talk about the pros and cons of the tool itself and try to come up with some use cases that you can use this thing for. So firstly, what is the Advanced Analysis tool? Well, the Google blog, when they released it last year, gave us this definition: a new tool in beta for Google Analytics 360 customers. Advanced Analysis offers detailed analysis techniques and deeper exploration and improve the understanding and yada yada yada. This seemed to me a little buzzwordy, so I tried to distill it down a little bit for you. This is my definition. It's a drag and drop method of creating reports that offers a few visualization and analysis features in addition to what we've classically seen available in the canned reports or the custom reports that are more frequently used for the DAP Google Analytics account. One thing you will notice, if I go back a slide here, is that notice it says it's a new tool in beta for Google Analytics 360 customers. So this is one of the situations where Google is beta testing. Actually, I don't know if they're going to be rolling this out to the free accounts, but at least for now, it's only available in 360 accounts. So if you happen to find this webinar via the digital.gov events page or something, and you are not a Digital Analytics Program Google Analytics account user, you will have to find an Analytics 360 account to make any sense of all the things that I'll talk about today. So it's a little expensive if you don't already have one. But for the folks that are on the line that are DAP users, which I assume are most of you, the great thing is that here at GSA, we purchase Analytics 360. So this tool is available for all of you to use. So taking a look at it, firstly, let me show you how we actually get to the tool. So if I went to analytics.google.com, and you'll notice this is the DAP account, Digital Analytics Program, and I'm in the GSA profile. I'm just going to be using the a couple GSA websites as our sites for demonstration today. The way that you actually get to these reports is down in the left-hand navigation. You will see this new Analysis Beta section above Discover. So it doesn't actually appear in your traditional or default reports with the accordions. It's down here, and you click Analysis. And then once you do that, it'll bring you to this screen where you can open your own exploration, segment overlap, or funnel analysis report. Those are the three types we're going to go over today. And all of your previous reports will be saved in this little section here. So that's how we get to it. Now, what are some considerations that we have to give in this particular training? So firstly, I'm totally learning this with you all. I spent multiple hours trying to get myself as educated as I could so that I could pass on information to you. And I'll certainly be trying to show you how I what I learned and how you create reports in this tool. But forgive me if I miss something or if I make an error. This is something that there's not a whole lot of information out online right now because of the fact that it's a Google Analytics 360 only tool. So it's kind of trial and error, and it's a beta tool. So theoretically, it might change, but it's interesting to kind of learn about it because I do think there are some value adds here. Okay, so what are the considerations that we have for the tool in general before we talk about some specific reports? Firstly, date picking is a little bit different than what you were used to. Let me get rid of this now. A little bit different than what you were used to in the custom reports. Usually the date picker would be up here in the top right-hand side. Right now, this is what they call an exploration report. And I've created it and already filled in some things that we'll talk about in a moment. But notice that the date picker is over here on the left-hand side under the variables. And we'll go over all these different variables in a moment. But you pick the dates in a similar fashion that you would in the normal reporting interface. It is interesting that they offer things like quarter to date and year to date as options. And also take note that whatever you set your particular date to, they do have the compare option to the previous period or previous year. So those are all the same, just kind of in a different place. What else do we have to think about? Exports. So over here, you can see we've got this, this download icon. I know in the usual, or in the previous sort of regular reporting UI, I think it actually says export. Well, this just has an icon. But if we click here, we get all the same options as we usually do. We can export to a Google Sheet or to CSV, PDF. Notice that they have this option to download the PDF of all the tabs, because you can actually add more than one report tab, similar to the custom reports. Although I believe in custom reports you can only download one PDF at a time. This gives you an option to download all the tabs that you create with various reports. I will say that I personally had an issue in the past few days trying to download PDFs. I was getting an error, and I'm not sure, it might have been local to my machine, or it might have been something that was buggy. But I'd be interested to hear if any of you had issues. I did try again today, and it worked fine. So it might have just been my machine. Sharing. So this is an interesting one. The share button here, when you create a report, this is something that I find is very important when I do custom reports or custom segments, the ability to share those templates. Unfortunately, for this particular tool, if we click the sharing button over here in the right-hand side, notice it says, this analysis will be shared with all users of this view in read-only mode, meaning all DAP users who have access to the GSA profile, which is almost all DAP users, will have access to this report. And that's not something that strikes me as ideal. I like the model where I could share specifically with one person. They could copy a template, and then they could edit or change the date range or alter that report in any way, except it was just I set up all the sort of hardware or the bones of the report for them. This doesn't work like that. So in this case, I think it's not super advisable to share reports that you make in this tool. You can export them or screenshot them or do something like that. But if you share them, it's going to appear for everybody. So maybe not the most advisable thing for the way that the DAP account works. Tabs. So I mentioned this. You can create multiple, like in this case, we have the exploration report set up. You can create multiple explorations, and so you can toggle in between different things if you're looking for various different, different data, and you want to have it in sort of one spot. You can create multiple tabs, and then, as I noted, you can export a PDF of all the tabs, which is a nice feature. And finally, sampling. As always, for those of you who are frequent in the DAP account, you know that we have a lot of data, and oftentimes folks that are users of DAP try to get data for long periods of time. I know every September we get a lot of people coming to us with questions about sampling because they're doing annual reporting for the end of the fiscal year. So just like in the normal reporting interface, there is the little shield. It's green in this case, so it says 100% of data. Obviously, you can tell if the report is being sampled if this little green shield turns yellow and you hover over it, and it will tell you what percentage of the data is sampled. I actually just had a thought as I was stating that regarding I don't see an export for an unsampled report. So I'm not sure if it's just not there because we don't have sampling currently or if there's no option for that. So I'm going to have to take a look and follow up on that because it just occurred to me as I was talking about sampling. Obviously, one of the big benefits of the traditional user interface and custom reports is that you have the option to do unsampled reporting if you do get that yellow shield. So I will check up on that. Okay, so finally, I guess the biggest change for how these reports are set up in this particular tool is how you actually create them. So instead of a custom report, and I can go over here to kind of show you how you set up a custom report where we would have, this is a flat table, for example. You would set up your dimensions and metrics and then potentially a filter. You still do all that, but the way that you do it is a bit different. You can see here that on the left-hand side, we've got segments, dimensions, and metrics. And you actually drag them over into the spots. So as an example here, if I get rid of browser as a column, we've got sessions and source is what the report is currently showing. And I can then take browser and click it and drag it over to create a column. And it will add that information in. So this takes a little bit of doing here to try to figure it out. And then you can also apply your segments by doing the same thing. So if I only wanted to have information on mobile traffic, I could drag mobile traffic over to the segment comparisons, and the report will automatically update. So that's actually one of the most interesting features of this particular tool, is that when you're setting up reports, they automatically update. Unlike in the custom reports where you have to click edit, go here, hit save, let it load. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time to load in the advanced analysis tool, but you can, I can get rid of mobile traffic now and I don't have to hit apply. It will just automatically update and show me the information. So that's kind of an interesting feature there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about each one of these types of reports and what they show you, and if they offer features that are beyond what we already have in the custom reporting interface. So firstly, this column breakdowns by dimension. So you may have taken notice of this when I just removed the browser column. But the way that the Explorer or the Exploration, reports are set up is that instead of specifically picking dimensions and metrics, you pick rows and columns and then set the value with which you want them to track. So I have the value set here as sessions. And if we started with the rows of source, we get what you would expect. And this is very similar to a report that you could create in the custom reporting interface. We've got the source here and then the total sessions for each one. And in this case, I've got a filter set up, and you do that at the bottom. And this is for digital.gov. So I've got the digital.gov filter set, and therefore it's only showing me data for that particular website. And okay, I've got source and sessions. Now, what's really cool here is that there's nothing in the column row because the values for sessions, which would typically be our metric, is something that's already included without setting up columns. So when I move my browser dimension into the columns, something really kind of cool and unique happens. It actually will break the chart down by each individual browser. So we've got totals on the far side here. And then we've got, okay, total traffic from Google on Chrome was this much. Total traffic from Google on Safari was this much, and so on and so on. I'm sorry. So you got like t.co is Twitter. So we see like, okay, we've got users on Safari accounted for 186 sessions if they came from Twitter, whereas it's 266 for Chrome. So this is cool because the closest approximation in terms of a custom report that I could make that would resemble this is what I have set up here, where we would use a flat table, and I would have source and browser, my two dimensions, with the metric of sessions. And again, I've got the same filter, host name matches exactly digital.gov. And you'll see how this differs when we can look at the report. So as a flat table, we're allowed to have multiple dimensions here, but it doesn't break it down by that particular second dimension. So we've got something individual here. Google with Chrome, 12,000. Direct with Chrome, 5,000. So it just has one column where it combines the data and lists the different options for your secondary dimension. Whereas, as you saw here, it actually breaks it down so it's a much more readable and understandable across the various different possible responses for the dimension of browser. So that's definitely a value add feature for sure. Okay, the visualization aspects. So one of the things I noted is that it's a bit wonky with the data. So one of the big reasons that I think I understand this tool was created was to help do some more visualization work. One of the visualizations is sort of built in. You can see here that we have some bar line charts. If this particular report doesn't act as maybe the best demonstration of that, but you can see here that the largest one, Google on Chrome, it takes up the full bar, and then in relation to that, we see bars for the other tools. So there's a visualization point right there. Let's see what happens, though, when I try to click in the visualization section and try to go to other things. So let's say I wanted to see a line chart instead of the chart with the little bars. I can click on line chart, and basically what happens is it shows me a line chart, but the line chart was not compatible with everything that I had set up in your regular graph chart. So we're missing the browser breakdown here. Right now, we've just got sessions coming from different sources. So the browser breakdown disappeared. And then if I go back to my normal chart, guess what? It doesn't put it back for me. So that was a little bit of something that I found to be kind of annoying, was that if you want to play with the visualization aspects of the tool, you have to be careful that all of your data is still present when you move around them. So it actually dropped out my column to break it down by browser because of the visualization that I picked, and it didn't really tell me that it did that. So when I went back to my normal chart, if I wanted this data back, I'd have to go find what got removed and put it back. So interesting that there are more visualization options, but you kind of have to make sure that they're playing correctly with the report that you've set up. Drag and drop isn't always drag and drop. So one of the things that I thought would have been really great about this is that you've got these various different drag and drop ways of creating the report when they list the dimensions and metrics and things over here. But the problem is that it only lists so many. And in order for you to get to a segment or dimension or metric that you want to drag over into this section to create a report, you actually have to add it. So for example, if I wanted to use the metric average time on page, it's not already there for me to drag, so I'd have to go find it. And there it is right there. I could click it and hit apply, and then it adds it to my little left-hand possibility, my little left-hand navigation for drag and drop. And then I can grab it and swing it over wherever I want to put it. And just for the heck of it, let's see what happens if I add multiple values here. So we've got sessions. We're trying to ask the report to do a lot of things now. We've got rows of source. We want to break it down by browser, and we want to have multiple values. And you can see here it does do that for you quite nicely. So that's kind of a neat feature for sure. And we can scroll over and get the whole report here. So this kind of almost makes like a little pivot table for you. And one thing you can do is notice, if I go over here, see the little down arrow? That is telling us what it is actually sorting it by right now. So the reason why Google and Direct and this is HubSpot email are all in the order they are is because of the fact that we're sorting on all sessions. So just like with any of the other reports, I could click, for example, on something specific, like let's sort by Safari sessions. And if I do that, I'll just click on sessions, and it will reorder the report so that it is doing it specifically for that. And the order does change a little bit because there were more direct visits from Safari than the totals. So that's how you move that around. Another interesting thing that you can do here is that you can create the report to have a lot of different things in it But then if I go up to this part where it says Safari or Chrome, I can right-click and say include only that selection, and it will, for a time, exclude everything else, and it will only show me the Chrome information that for that column that I requested, if it loads. There we go. So we'll see we've got Chrome, and then we've got totals. So it removed all the information for Safari, removed all the information for IE, those kinds of things. Now, one of the things that I found that was difficult about trying to get back to my original view is that I think if I exclude it, it's not going to work either. So I actually just hit the back button. There's an undo button, and then it will bring us to the report that I was just at. Hopefully that'll load in a second. So finally, what I think is one of the coolest features of the exploration reports as far as visualization goes is you have the option, instead of these little line bars, you can actually go down here and see where it says cell type. You can alter that to heat map. And so now, again, this maybe isn't the best report to try to show it, but it makes it very simple for you to pick out. Whoops. I was two-finger scrolling, and I went a little too far there. It makes it easy for you to pick out, like, for example, Facebook visits from Safari have a much, much higher time on page, and it makes it very evident because it's done in the heat map style. So this is a really cool feature to be able to put heat mapping in what is sort of a traditional chart report without having to export data and put it into a spreadsheet and do some heat mapping functions from the spreadsheet. So it's nice that this exists in something native to Google Analytics so that you have to do less exportation yourself. So that's a really cool part. I think that's it, what I had for the exploration report. Obviously, you all can play with this and bring in different segments and rows and columns and play with the different metrics and dimensions and see what you can derive out of it for things that would be useful to you. But it is really nice that they still have the filter aspect so that we can drill down to a specific website. OK, moving on to the next type of report, which is the segment overlap report. So for segment overlap, what I did here, and the reason I'm not creating them in front of you is sometimes it takes a little bit long to load. And so I didn't want to waste time, and I already have them up so that we can take a look. But in this case, we do have a little bit of a different setup here. And the way I would get here is just, here I can show you actually, back in the actual, the home section for the analysis, when I click here, you can create a blank or you can create a new segment overlap, and then you can adjust whatever metrics and dimensions you'd like. So in this case, I wanted to compare, because since it's the segment comparison tool, I wanted to compare mobile traffic and organic traffic. Look, see, as I noted, sometimes it takes a while to load. So you might be thinking, like, why would you want to compare mobile to organic traffic? I mean, I think it's just interesting to be able to take two different segments and the way that this shows them, to be able to see how much overlap between those, somewhat not necessarily similar, dissimilar segments. Organic traffic is an acquisition source, and mobile traffic obviously is about a device. But what's cool about this is that it creates this little Venn diagram for us to do the comparison. And we can hover in the diagram, and we can see for mobile traffic and organic traffic, there were 1.5 million users and 2.5 million page views. And if I go over here, we've got organic. Notice it says only if I look, if I bring my cursor up, and it says just organic traffic if I come down here. So organic traffic on its own, you can see it's highlighting the circle in the Venn. This is all organic traffic, and it's giving me 3.2 million users and 5.4 million page views. And then if I go up here, it says organic traffic only, which if you look at the way the circle's being highlighted, it actually means organic traffic that does not include the mobile traffic overlap. So this is kind of the novel piece of this particular report, is that you get this visualization, but it also calculates for you not only what is overlapped, but what is not overlapped. So it gives you, and you can see in the chart down here, and again, I broke it down by browser, which is, we've got a lot of information in here. So it's a pretty complex looking report. But we've got, okay, for organic traffic, it gives you the numbers based on browser and then totals. And then for mobile traffic, but then over here, it does the same thing for you in the report that we had in the visualization, I guess. We've got organic traffic only, so this is not including mobile. And we've got mobile traffic only, not including organic. And then we have mobile and organic together, which is this middle section of the Venn diagram. Where do they overlap? And you can see that it's got, for page views, 33% of all page views are both organic. They come from a search engine, which is what organic traffic means, and they're on mobile devices. So this is a way for you to really start to be able to slice and dice some different segmentations of your audience and understand like what sort of percentage they make up. In this case, again, I've got a filter on here. This one is set to match for USA.gov. So this is the USA.gov website. So trying to recreate this in a custom report is a little difficult. So I tried. And here's what I basically got. And I'll show you how I set it up for those of you who are savvy with making custom reports. I did an Explorer report where I was looking at users. I suppose I could also add, did we have page views in here as well? Yeah. So I could also add page views. And I use the dimension drill down host name because I just need to be able to see that it's USA.gov. And then the way that I am trying to replicate what we see in the segmentation is to actually add some segments that are either already created system segments or I had to make one. And I'll show you what that looks like once this loads. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. There we go. OK. So what I did then is I've got, all right, for USA.gov, we've got organic mobile and organic mobile. So this is the segment that I created. I called it organic mobile, which is maybe a bit confusing. But this already comes as a segment out of the box, organic traffic. OK, that accounts for however many users. Then we've got, OK, mobile traffic, and that accounts for how many users. And then what I had to do to try to make the middle of the Venn, what's represented here, was actually I created my own segment where I specified it had to be organic and mobile. And so we've got an approximation of the same type of thing over here. But what we don't have, and that you would have to do individual math for, is this kind of thing, the organic traffic only. So you'd have to do some subtraction there to get that particular thing. And also, it doesn't, I don't think, yeah, in this case, it doesn't really give you the kind of percentages that you would hope for. I think these percentages are potentially not based on the filter. Whereas in this one, you can see we've got some very good percentage metrics. And as I mentioned before, we can see for the Venn, 38% of traffic or whatever it was there, 33% of page views and 38% of users are coming to USA.gov in this way. So I think that's definitely a bonus as well. I probably just skipped like all the things I wanted to talk about. OK, so yes, the segment in the Venn diagram, it's pretty neat. I think that's a cool thing. Although, like, beyond it being cool, how much use is there for it? For the Venn diagram, the actual visualization, I mean, other than maybe taking a screenshot of it so that you could show it in a meeting or something, I'm not sure how much the Venn diagram viz actually is going to help you out. But I do think that the reporting aspect of it in the chart that we saw below it is pretty neat. I showed you that you can hover in the Venn diagram and get some information. Adding the breakdowns also really cool. So the fact that I can just throw browser in here and have it break down by browser and make a pretty complex report is valuable, in my opinion. The one downside, in my opinion, for this is that it starts you out with the value of users. And as far as I can tell, there's no way to remove it. So if I like hover in page views, I get the X, I can remove page views. But it doesn't appear that you can actually remove the user's metric from doing a segment overlap report. And I take a little bit of issue with that because personally, I am not a huge fan of using the users metric rather than, I prefer to use the sessions metric. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. If you've listened to our other trainings, you've probably heard us talk about the fact that, you know, it's difficult because if I visit a site on my work laptop and my home laptop and my work phone and my home phone, that looks like 4 unique users. And so users to me, it has always been a bit inflated, and it doesn't depict how many actual humans are visiting. So it's not something that I'm a super big fan of. The other thing is that recently, the WebKit, which is the sort of structure that powers the browser Safari, they released an update, and you may have seen that I wrote a blog about this on digital.gov, where they now are implementing, for the newest versions of Safari, they are implementing a 7-day cookie expiration date, which means previously when you had a returning user, the browser would have the cookie and you'd land on the site and it would say, oh, you visited whatever 6 months ago or something like that, but you're a returning user. Well, now on Safari, because of this new policy that was imposed by Safari and probably will be adopted by other browsers in the near future as well. If somebody were to visit your site and then 8 days later on the same device without having cleared their cookies, they visit the site again, they would look like 2 new users rather than a returning user. So definitely some ramifications with the way browsers are being configured with analytics. So I'm not the biggest fan of users metric versus sessions. I just feel like sessions has a more definite, understandable definition, and I know what to expect from it. So a bit of a bummer that for this, I can't actually get rid of users, because usually I like to make my segments session-based. But so it goes. We live with what we got, I guess. So that is the segment overlap report. Finally, we've got the funnel report, which is the final and third option for the advanced analysis. And it's sort of similar to the funnel report that we have available to us in Analytics 360 in the custom reports. So if you might remember, I'll go to edit here. The funnel report in custom reporting is also only a 360 feature. So free versions will not have this funnel option. They'll only have Explorer, Flat Table, and Map Overlay. I really like the funnel reports. It allows us to do basically an unlimited amount of funnels, where if you were to try to use the goals function of Google Analytics, you're limited to, I think, 20. And using goals in the DAP account is actually pretty hard to do with the way that we're structured. So having the funnel report is pretty valuable. But this funnel report in either the custom reports or the advanced analysis tool is built to be able to follow a user through an intended journey path. So for this example, I'm going to show you the journey path that I'm measuring. So users are going to land on USA.gov from organic traffic, meaning they found the site via a search engine. And then one of the more popular things that goes on USA.gov is the find unclaimed money. So everybody wants to find unclaimed money. I mean, who doesn't, right? So the idea is that the user would land here and then click on the find unclaimed money. And then I wanted to try to mix up how our funnel would work. So I actually found that there was this downloadable PDF of this infographic. So you can actually see a larger version of it by clicking. And you can see here. So this is a PDF. So this would be classified when someone clicks on that for DAP purposes. Since DAP automatically fires an event for file downloads, this would be an event for a PDF download. So I want people to make it to the home page from organic search, click on the unclaimed money page, and then click on this link to download the PDF. And that's how I'm going to try to measure. So in our classic, custom report for the funnel, you can see how I've got it set up here. Stage 1, you give it a label. I made rules for it. You may not necessarily follow all these rules, but I'll run through them really quickly. The default channel grouping is organic search, because I want it to come from a search engine. And then I'm going to say, OK, I want them to land on the home page. So I set the dimension for landing page exactly matches USA.gov. And then the next stage is they go to unclaimed money, and we've got page exactly matches usa.gov/unclaimed money. And then finally, we have the expand the infographic, where I'm saying the event label, which if you learn a little bit about how the DAP events are categorized, excuse me, event category would be outbound, event action would be USA.gov, and event label would be the infographic unclaimed money, which is what you get if after the domain if you actually click on that particular PDF link. So I put that together here, and this is the classic way to do it in custom reports. And we'll get this little funnel report that will be really, really big on the left-hand side, because there's a lot more organic traffic than necessarily lands on the homepage. But you can see it cuts it off here. So this is what we are used to, or if you've used the funnel report, you've seen before. We've got this big thing for organic traffic. It tells you there's a percentage of it that lands on the homepage. It's pretty low, actually. It's only 1%. And then from there, from those that land on the homepage, we've got, from 53,000, we cut it down to 2,000 that make it to unclaimed money. And then 23 actually click the expand infographic. So how is this different in the new tool? It's not super different. You can, in the same way that you can in the custom report, you can add segment comparisons, but you set up the steps in a very similar way. If I just clicked on the edit over here, the edit pencil under the steps, and I've created basically all the same steps. Default channel is organic search, landing page matches USA.gov, page exactly matches unclaimed money, and infographic, the event label. So it's the exact same setup, and what we get here is nearly the same thing as what we saw in the custom report, except I guess it gives you some completion and abandonment rates that are, well, I guess we had those as well. We have sort of completion rates and abandonment rates down here. So it is a lot of the same kind of thing. I'm not sure if this particular part of the tool offers a whole bunch more than what we already had in the custom reporting. But it's possible that since the funnel report over here was in beta and the advanced analysis report is in beta, that one of them will go away. So it may be that they roll the funnel report that was in custom reports only over here, so you have to use it. Let's talk about the things that I noticed. So you can put good variations in your steps, meaning it doesn't have to only be pages. It doesn't have to be a visitor came and visited page A, and then visited page B, and then visited page C. We can actually set things in both the custom report and in the advanced analysis tool. We can set, okay, I want to know for an acquisition channel, I want it to be organic, or you could set a specific campaign, or social media traffic, something like that. You can set those and then move on to, okay, there are some pages, and then as you noticed at the end, I set up the final step to be an event. So we mixed an acquisition aspect, a behavior aspect in the page views, and an event, which is an interaction that's happening after the page load, all into that funnel report, which is cool. It's nice that we're able to do that. As I noted, you have the easily obtained abandonment and retention rates over here. So it gives you the completion rate and abandonment rate and how many abandonments you had. But again, we basically have those over here. They're just not put in the same chart. I guess maybe the advantage here is that they give you a little chart to make it a little easier to understand. What else? Aha, yes. Fewer options for open and closed funnels from what I can tell. So in our custom report, if I go back to edit, one thing that I can do here is I can say that I want this to be an open funnel. And if I say an open funnel, that means users can enter at any stage. They don't have to enter at stage 1 and progress all the way to stage 5 or 4 in this case. And if I do that, I'll probably see a whole bunch of visitors coming in right at the unclaimed money spot. Yeah. So you see here, this is the bottom where this little white line is. It's kind of hard to see. But the bottom of the white line is what came from our homepage, or I'm sorry, not from the homepage here. We've got the unclaimed money over here. So the bottom of it is what is going from step to step to step. And above that line is an extra amount of people that came in, or visits, I should say, that came in directly on that step, not from step one. So this is valuable if you're setting up, you can set up an open funnel, and if you expect people to go from the homepage to the unclaimed money to the actual click on the PDF, you can set it up as an open funnel. And what we would see here is that actually we get way more people coming on the homepage not from organic traffic, and we get way more people that are coming in at stage 3, the unclaimed money page, that are not coming from the homepage. So this allows you to get a bunch more information. And from what I can tell, and this is one of these things where I might be wrong, but it appears to me that there's no way to make this an open funnel. And I looked in the settings, and one thing that's cool is you can move the steps around here. So you can make this step 2 or step 1 just by toggling it. But I don't see anywhere where I can make this an open funnel. So if any of you find out a way to do it, please let us know. It's not super visible to me. I think maybe it's only letting you do a closed funnel, which would mean you have to start at step 1 and go through the various different steps, step 2, step 3, step 4. So that was kind of a bummer about that particular report. Here's something else also really interesting. The numbers are just slightly varied. So let me go back and actually undo that open funnel and make it closed. Okay. So now we see, okay, for organic, I've got just over 5 million. For landing on the homepage, I've got 53,599. I made sure that the date range was the same. It's, in this case, March 13th to April 11th. If I go back to our report here, where our custom report had just over 5 million, we've got just under 5 million. And from the report over here, where we've got 53,599, we've got 52,702. Now, it turns out that when we get down to the final thing that we were looking for, how many people actually clicked on that PDF download, they're the same. They both say 23. And the difference, and even the unclaimed money page, 21, 23, that stayed the same as well. But for some reason, the first two were just a fraction of a percentage different. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why, because neither of them are being sampled. It says this report's based on 100% of data, and this report's based on 100% of data. So I don't fully understand what Google would be doing in the background, which would make them fetch slightly different numbers. It's possible that the way that this report is created is working slightly differently than the way the custom report that I showed you is doing it when it's trying to harvest data from the database. Again, I mean, the differences were negligible. They were, like I said, a fraction of a percent. It really didn't make much of a difference, but it was something that I noticed, that the numbers are just slightly different. So I'm going to have to chalk that up to the fact that this probably retrieves data slightly differently, but just something to keep an eye on. Okay, so those are the 3 different reports. Let's talk about the general pros and cons here from what we saw today. For the advanced analysis tool, pros: the dimension breakdown and the columns are a super welcome addition. Being able to see that data not in a sort of that flat table form that I showed you, being able to break things down by multiple columns with multiple sets of metrics in them, that's really, really valuable. And being able to export those into a Google Sheet, for example, if I were to do this, it basically creates pivot tables for you, and you could do lots of different things with that. Oh, got a pop-up block here. Allow this one. Well, it doesn't matter. You've all seen a spreadsheet before, but it does import the data pretty nicely into spreadsheets for you. The segment overlap report, a new twist, kind of cool. The fact that we get this visualization, the fact that it does the math for you to tell you what things are not organic but not mobile, or mobile but not organic, that's definitely a value add as well. And we've got more built-in data visualization. So like I said, There are some different options that you can play with. I didn't take a lot of time today to click through in the exploration report all the different visualizations that you can do. But the fact that the exploration report has that heat map is pretty cool. It looks like actually there isn't an option to make the heat map for the segment overlap. But it does have certainly more visualization than what we're used to. I would say I'm not sure if it's all as customizable as you'd like. So, there are certainly a bunch of other tools out there, whether you do exports and create pivot tables and make visualizations in spreadsheets, or if you use Data Studio or Tableau. There are lots of different other ways to do visualization. And I get the sense that some of them may still be, if you're willing to put in the time, much more customizable, depending on your mission. But in the sense that you can go somewhere like this really quickly and take a screenshot. I didn't even demonstrate when you do this with the previous period, but it does allow you. It'll show us two separate Venn diagrams for the different periods of time, which is kind of neat. So I guess if you have a report or something and you're looking to come up with something quick that you can show in your own presentation, that's definitely something you can look into. I'll try to go back there in a second and show you what it looks like. So the cons. Obviously, it's a new learning curve, myself included. It took me some time to be able to create these reports and manipulate them. I'm very used to using custom reports, and they're not difficult for me anymore because I do this every day. This had some difficulty. I was learning how to use it, learning how to create the drag and drop, looking at the different options. You can create, add more rows, do different things. It took some research online, some making reports that didn't make any sense. Oh, here you go. Here's your multiple Venn diagrams, by the way, if you do the comparison with the date picker. So, and it does give you all that information in that single chart that you could export, which is cool. Anyways, yeah, so for the learning curve, obviously learning something new always takes a bit of time. So I guess it's not necessarily a con, but it's something just to keep in mind. So there's really also not any new data. It's all data that's already available in custom reports. It's just showing it to you in different ways, which might make your life easier. It might make your life harder if you're pretty accustomed to using custom reports and you're comfortable with them. But I've talked to people who are avid Google Analytics users who say they do not use custom reports anymore. They basically make all their reports in this tool. So, to each their own. If you like it, cool, use it. And finally, just to keep in mind that it is still in beta. So there are times when I get sort of weird things happening. It didn't appear to really happen to me much here, but loading sometimes takes longer than expected. I've been thrown a few errors. I noted with the trying to download a PDF a couple times I got errors. I've tried to create a report 2 or 3 times where it threw me an error. So it's a bit buggy still. Obviously, that's the reason why it's in beta. Google's still working to try to, work out all those kinks, I guess. So the verdict, I'm not going to take any particular position on it. It's another tool in our tool belt for things that we can use for analysis. And I think if you have a use case where you feel that those breakdowns would help you, or that you want to do some segment overlap, like a use case I was trying to think of for segment overlap is maybe you work at an agency that's doing specific work geographically with campaigns. Like I could see this maybe working for like National Park Service or something. Let's say you're doing some outreach in a specific state for a specific park. You could certainly do segment overlaps where the campaign matches your campaign name and all traffic from that state. And so you can see from all traffic coming from Montana to the NPS site, how much of it was based on the campaign traffic that we created via our emails or social media or whatever it may be. And you could do that with a segment doing matching campaign names. That's just one use case that I thought of. I'd love to hear more use cases from you. But like I said, it certainly has value. For me, I don't think it's going to replace custom reports. I definitely think that I'll go and use it, especially for the extra ability to break down some of those reports further with the column aspect. But I'm really interested for you all to try it for yourself and let us know how you use it. Or if the tool's actually been in GA360 for a little while now. We just haven't done a webinar on it. So if you found it and you started using it a while ago and you've got some good stories or good reports or had experiences, please let us know either in the chat box right now, and Freddie can tell us about it, or give us an email. So, I mean, are you going to use this? Basically, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it. I'm not sure how much you all will use it. I do think it has some value in different ways. So I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. Like I said, it's another tool in our toolbox and something that we can make use of. So 50 minutes, not bad. That leaves us 10 minutes in case there are questions. Obviously, if you need DAP access, or you want to ask us something, or you want to share a story about using the advanced analysis tool yourself, you can email us at dap@support.digitalgov.gov, and we look forward to hearing from you. So, Freddie, do we have any questions that came through in the chat?
Yes, we do. We have two questions right now. First one is, what do you suggest to agencies that are blocked from Google Docs for their custom reports? Are PDFs the only workaround? So I guess this is applicable to also, Google Analytics, but also this new analysis tool. What are your thoughts, Tim?
So the way that you share custom reports shouldn't be done with, well, okay, maybe I understand what you're saying here. I think what you mean is maybe like, if you happen to export a custom report, or in, let's say, Google Sheets, that's an option, right? So that would certainly, if you don't have access to Google Docs or the Google Suite, that would probably break for you. You obviously would have the ability also to export it into an Excel spreadsheet, which you could email to someone. But one thing that I want to clarify is that if I go to my custom reports section, the way that I usually share custom reports is via a template link. So for the flat table report that I showed today, you go to the custom report main page, and on the right-hand side, it says Actions. And if you click here and hit Share, it will then give you the option to share a template link, and you get this lovely link that you can send to someone. And if that person has access to Google Analytics, it will open for them when they put in that link, and they can choose the view that they want to see it on. So if it was a GSA colleague of mine, they would choose to apply this template to the GSA agency profile in the Digital Analytics Program account. And it would recreate all of the metrics and dimensions that I set up in that report, but it would then be their report, and they could edit it, add more things, edit the timeline, change whatever they wanted, but it's completely separate from your report. So you certainly do not need access to the Google Suite to be able to share reports with each other. You could, like I said, you could do it via emailing a spreadsheet or a PDF, excuse me, or in my opinion, a really great way to share is to do this template linking, where someone can recreate the report that you did the hard work to get set up.
Awesome, great. Okay, so the second question. Do filters in Google Analytics 360 overwrite filters in the custom reports, but also, I guess, the analysis tool as well?
Okay, I'm hoping I understood this correctly. So, do the filters in the analysis tool, right, Freddie? The filters in this tool?
The filters in Google Analytics 360. So I'm thinking probably they were referring to the filters in the various views in the admin section. How do those play with filters that you use in custom reports, but also in the analysis tool?
Okay, so if we're talking about filters in custom reports versus the analysis tool, you have to make these reports completely separately. So everything that I showed you today when I was doing comparisons, I had to go to the custom report section and create that report from scratch, and I add my own filter there. So that's where I added in, host name exactly matches USA.gov, for example. And then when I had to make it in the advanced analysis tool, you have to do the same thing. So starting from scratch, I had to drag and drop all the same stuff. You can't import one into the other. So you can't take a custom report and just import it into the advanced analysis tool. You have to create it in the same way. And so you set up the filters yourself for each individual tool, and you would just set them up individually. So there's no really overwriting there. And in terms of like the initial part of the question about do filters in GA360, there is a filter terminology that Freddie and I use as admins of the account, but I don't think you're referring to that. So I think it was probably more along the lines of the custom report and the particular analysis here. So I hope I was able to answer that. But if I didn't answer that well, whoever asked that question, please feel free to email us and we'll try to clear it up.
Great. And we had a third question, but you just answered it, Tim. It was, is there any migration path from custom reports to the analysis tool? And as you stated, there is no way to import those custom reports into the analysis tool. You have to recreate them.
Not that I know of. I mean, there's not anything that I found in the custom report section that says like, you know, export to advanced analysis. Let me check just to make sure. Yeah. So oh, wait, look at this. This is a great question. Analyze beta. If I click this, is it going to automatically? See, I told you all I was learning with you. It is. Well, that is neat. Okay. So I made all the different reports from scratch and I didn't have to. In the custom reporting section, it looks like you have the option to create a custom report and then hit analyze and it will put it into the tool. How neat is that? Where did that thing go?
That's great.
I'm not sure exactly where it was that I clicked on, but it does look like it's possible. I think this one was it. So yeah, I had this as a custom report and I clicked analyze and it imported everything here. So I apologize to the person that I just told that you could not do this. It looks like you can. So if you're more comfortable with a custom report, go ahead and build it there. This probably increases the amount of usage I'll use this tool for as well, because you can build a custom report and then just hit that button and it'll import it over. So I would imagine it would keep the same filter. It did. I had a filter on that custom report that specified for digital.gov, and it just imported it right in when I hit that. So, wow, cool feature. Thanks for asking those questions, folks. That you just taught me something. Any other questions, Freddie?
That's it for right now, Tim.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending and listening to me blab about this thing and being able to show me some new tricks of the trade. You know, as some of you may know, if you're using Google Analytics frequently, Google's always changing stuff up on us. So it's always fun to be able to take a look at some various different new tools and then, you know, find out things along the way. So thanks again. We hope that you'll join us next month. Our next webinar is going to be using the analytics.usa.gov API. And so that'll be a pretty interesting thing as well. We built an API for analytics.usa.gov. It's at analytics.usa.gov/developer. So we'll be talking about that. But again, for those of you still on the line, if you could please fill out the very short survey to give us some feedback on today's webinar, we'd be greatly appreciative. I wish you all the best of the rest of your week. And thanks again to Freddie and Lauren and Alex from the DigitalGov University team. We hope to see you next time.